Hello, testing. Hello, can you hear me? Manuel, are you able to hear me? Hi, Danube. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
All right. I just got a new speaker. So
Oh, great.
It works.
Well, that's you, Jillian.
Yes.
Hi, Jillian.
Hey.
Oh, look at sporting a new little city garb.
Yeah, I got one of my polos in, so I'm excited to wear it tonight.
Oh, great.
Ignore my filthy office right now.
I know. I have to spend 5 minutes arranging myself, you know.
And I have the agenda packet pulled up. So whenever you need me to share, just let me know what page and I'll be able to share my screen.
Okay, perfect. Manny, who's going to be giving our presentation, he's here on the Zoom right now too. Hey, Manny, can you hear me? Can you hear us? Well, I'll let him know that you'll be running the pictures of his rock cairn.
Okay.
So he won't have to do anything. So yeah, great. So how's this week starting out, Jillian?
Starting out well. It's been a long Monday, but a good one. It was a great weekend.
Yeah, it was really nice yesterday. I liked it. So cool and everything.
Yeah.
Hey, Manny, can you hear us?
Oh, I can hear you clearly.
Great. This is Jillian Rossi. She's our she's our park and rec director.
Awesome.
And she's going to go ahead and put up the documents that you sent to me, the pictures of your for your presentation.
Awesome. I appreciate that.
Okay, and then you can just walk us through it, everything, and tell us what you have in mind, and
I will.
Who you're working in partnership with, or whoever's providing input.
Absolutely. Yeah, just I guess let me know when you're ready, and I'll give some info.
Okay.
I just lost my notes though. Let me go find them.
Okay, you bet.
Excuse me. Did you get my notes? Did you get my notes?
Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, Jillian.
Found them. Yeah.
Did you have anything to add to the agenda, Jillian, or did you just want to include it in your park reports?
Oh, all right. Sorry, it was not letting me unmute for a moment. I can just add it in my director's report. Yeah, I just have a few follow-up bits of follow-up information from our last meeting.
Okay.
So I can share that, and it shouldn't take more than 5 minutes.
Okay. Did you happen to go to the council meeting this week? Was it last week?
Last week.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I saw that they wanted to postpone the contract for Copeland and Mott.
They do. I'm going to present it next Tuesday. There was just a couple of contradictions in the contract, and one actually did not end up being a contradiction, but the other was, and it was just really confusing wording, basically. So I'm redoing the contract with Horde, Copeland and Mott and representing it for the consent calendar on Tuesday. So
okay, great. So you're in touch with Robin then?
Yes.
Very good.
Yeah, Robin and Justin.
Yep, perfect.
Chatting with.
So when we did that first go around with the west side of Soda Springs Park, and we were doing the construction documents, Justin was really excellent in running the meetings, and
right.
So he'll be really good for the playground. And
I noticed, so are there 4 phases? What was the first phase called? Because I noticed that the phase including the pavilion is also called the West Side Improvements.
Right.
So that was confusing to me.
Yeah. So basically the master plan was broken down into 3 different phases. The first phase is the west side that is completed already. And then the second phase was phase 2, which was just the playground equipment and the creek trail, or just the trail amenities improvements. And then I guess where it got confusing is they named the turf area in phase 2, the west side. So that's where it got confusing. And then I guess they lumped the pavilion in with the west side portion of that, which is the new sod and everything.
Okay.
And they named that the west side. So that's where it really got confusing too.
Okay, yeah,
I think to me as well.
Now, but I was a little confused earlier.
Right.
All good.
Right. So Jillian, with your screen, will I be able to see everybody who's going to be attending the Zoom meeting? Or do I have to do something on my end to see everybody who's here on board?
So once I share my screen, you can adjust your settings and you can see everyone at the top of your screen.
Okay.
Do you want me to go ahead and share, or do you want me to?
Well, yeah, I'd like you to share so I can see who's on board here.
Okay, can you not see the folks who are on right now?
I can see Manny, I see Judith. Hi, Judith.
Hi.
I see Jan and Tim Beeson. They're not visual, but they're here. Candace, Colin, Tim, and Bresnahan and Rebecca Wood. They're not visual, but they're here. So
that's everyone who's here currently.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I have to make sure we have a quorum before I start. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait a few more minutes for Chris, our secretary, to get on board. As far as I know, she's gonna be here. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll just go ahead and start, and then Chris will just jump on. So I'd like to call the PARAB meeting to order for August 7, 2023. Tonight I've invited OSAC to be a part of our meeting, and I also invited some members of Save the Flats to come as well, but I don't see any other members from Save the Flats attending. So OSAC, thank you for joining us tonight. There's Chris. Hi, Chris.
Hello.
So with that, I'll move to item 2 to approve the agenda. I'd like to amend the agenda to have old business, which is discussion of Higginbotham Flats, follow the presentation. And Manny, you're welcome to stay on for that, to be part of that for our old business segment. And other than that, I don't have any other amendments for the agenda. So can I get an approval of the amended agenda?
I'll approve that, Danu. Colin.
Okay, great. Thank you, Colin. Can I get a second?
I second.
Okay, great. Thank you, Candace. Approval of agenda is passed. Approval of our minutes. We have our draft minutes from June 5th, 2023. And I'll take a motion whenever anybody wants to make it.
Motion to approve. It's Rebecca.
Thank you, Rebecca. Second? I'll second. Does everybody in favor of it? I'll assume everyone's in favor of it. If no one's, is anybody opposed to it? Okay, the minutes are approved. Then we have the draft minutes for July 10. And I'll entertain a motion from anybody once everyone's approved that, read that. Anybody want to make a motion to approve? That was from our budget section.
Sure. Motion to approve.
Okay, I'll second that as well. Is anybody opposed to approving the minutes? Okay, then I assume everyone else approves of them. So all minutes are approved, and we'll move to item 4, public comments not on the agenda. Is there anybody out there who'd like to make a public comment? No, if not, then let's move on to item 5, our presentation. Tonight we have Manuel. Can you, Pulido? Okay, Manuel Pulido. He has come up with a proposal for a 7-stone cairn to be installed at Higginbotham Flats. Is that right, Manuel?
That's exactly right.
Okay, great. Yeah, so Jillian, if you want to go ahead and put up that the first intro page that, yep, perfect.
Right.
Okay, Manny, go ahead and take us through it.
Okay, sure. Let me see if I can move this. There we go. I'll go ahead and start just reading it. So in actuality, there is a correction on this. This is an 8 cairn stone, not a 7. And I'll explain why as we go on. Some of the most ancient cairns in our country are found right here in Colorado. Cairns symbolize communication and unity between each other. Communication has always been the mortar between that unites communities. This is a small gesture for our founding fathers and all the hard work that Manitou Springs continues and contributes to today. The sculpture will display and engrave names of 7 prominent native tribes of Colorado. And that's 8, by the way, I made a mistake. We're 7 tribes: the Ute, Cheyenne, Apache, Comanche, Kiowa, Arapaho, and Lakota, which are all here in Manitou. We also want to represent the non-native tribes of the community with the stone on the cairn. We are hoping to use the stone excavated on site because most tribes, including my tribe, believe in the spirit of the ancestors communicate through the stones. The idea behind that is, I'm sure everyone's heard of sweat lodges. And when we do a sweat lodge, it's very easy to burn a fire inside the sweat lodge and heat up the room fast. It takes longer to do a stone. But we believe that the smoke, the fumes, the odor, everything that comes out of that stone is part of our ancestors our DNA is in the earth, in the stone, and that's why we always heat up the stone and use the stones instead of actually just making a fire. So around that, we're hoping to excavate a lot of the stones from that site specifically to use the DNA of our ancestors. So the stones that I've seen there on the site already are, and it's a beautiful site, by the way. I think we can use that and be closer to who the first people of our community. I'm sure everybody's heard about the community and how the Ute people got, somebody claimed they found gold in Tala or Pikes Peak. And then they were forced off of there because of the gold that never was. But they moved themselves to Tabiwatch Mountains, which means people of Taba or people of Pikes Peak. And to this day, they still call themselves the Tabiwatch people. And one of the things about the Ute people, and all Native people, but specifically the Ute people that would come here that is part of lost history, is that not only did they come here to drink the waters to heal themselves, as we all know, they also came here to give birth in the waters. So technically, this is the birthplace of the Ute people and the other Native people that came after them, like the Comanche, the Apache, the Cheyenne. So what we're trying to do is represent everybody that's been here, and then the people that are here now that are the tenders of that community and continue the community with the 8 stone cairn. The cairns are really important to the people because it marks where we're from, marks where to eat, where to hunt, where to drink water. It marks our community. And I feel like Manitou Springs is a community that really pays attention to all of that. And I feel if we can continue that belief and continue that idea of our community, we can mark it with a cairn. And there is a picture of the cairn that you'll see as we scroll. The thing with that cairn, that was a rough draft, just to give an idea of where this would be. The sages around it, there's already sages growing up there, Rocky Mountain sage. There's 2 kinds of sages. There's also a white sage that grows up there. There's sweetgrass growing up there. So we have 4 medicines. And on the 4 medicines are always tobacco, sage, sweetgrass, and cedar. Cedar's a tough one. Cedar doesn't do well on our elevation, but we do have juniper up there, and a lot of times juniper takes the places of cedar because it's a close relative. So everything's already going up there for medicine. What we like to do, and after talking to the tribe leaders and the chiefs and the elders, they all agree that if we can make what would be more of a medicine pack, the way they left for their ancestors, we can leave a medicine pack of seeds of these medicines. Mind you, when we call them medicines, it's not medicine for sake that it heals you physically, but it heals you spiritually. You do cleansings, you do use the smoke for pipes and so on. So we like to have a beautiful garden around there that has plants that are actually there now. They've been tending themselves. No one tends to them, so they're low maintenance. And but just organize them more, maybe in a circle, a prayer circle kind of, where people can go and take these medicines and use them and sage their houses and sage their newborn babies, and maybe a place of prayer. But we like to leave a packs of these seeds to be excavated and open 50 years from now in case these plants don't exist anymore. Under or in the base. So I talked to a couple biologists, also talked to a couple the lead I'm trying to think of what his title is. I'll probably get this wrong. Alex from Colorado Springs. He is a botanist, and they do have containers that will hold up to 100 years. But we'd like to maybe put some information on the cairn that explains in 50 years from now to be opened and to replant these seeds in case they don't exist anymore. According to the botanist, both botanists that I've spoken to, they both says that a lot of those are already dying, and people are overpicking and not taken care of, or the change of our weather also is taking them. So why not leave it a job to be able to communicate with our descendants 50 years from now. And so that's the idea up there. That is a special place. And I think it's, originally we were thinking about another park, which is this park coming up. But 7 minutes doesn't lend itself for the size that we want to do. You know, the size is going to be approximately 6 to 8 feet tall. And also depending on the municipal regulations, whatever they may be, you know, maybe there's a size limit, but we definitely don't want to cross those lines. But the idea right now is 6 to 8 feet tall. And it has, and in this quick rough draft that I did, it only has the 7 tribes, and it's missing the 8th tribe, which is us now, the community now, which we will add to that if you guys agree to us working on Higginbotham Flats. Yeah. Anybody have any questions or comments? Did I lose everybody there?
I have a question.
Oh,
Yes.
So when you talk about the plants up there now, you said all these plants are present up there now? Did I understand?
Yeah, all except tobacco. Most of the plants are up there. There is a type of tobacco there that we don't use, or it's part of the family of tobacco. We do use it with tobacco, but we don't use it as a replacement of tobacco, which is mullein. Mullein is directly related to tobacco, and in a pinch it could be used. But there's Hopi tobacco would be the one that would be mostly used for ceremony. But there is a tobacco that grows out here and actually grows on the Innerman Trail that would probably be very easy to retransplant, or at least the seeds.
So if that's so, and this project goes forward, wouldn't it be possible to, I don't know if protect is the right word, but protect those plants by the way you garden them, by the way you stage them, by the signage up there, and also by providing some kind of a water system if as necessary?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Any water system that we could would be great. It would help the plant grow faster. It would keep the plants nice and healthy. But those particular plants, in the native way, you kind of allow them to be, and they'll grow where we need the medicine at. And in our case, it's actually growing there already. So if you look at it in a native way, it's almost asking for something there. And if we can add water, amazing. That would be great to have a gardener up there working on it, or we can actually tend it as well. Our native group here in Manitou, we have a group called Sacred Sage Consortium. And it's a group of 18 native people, and we all are kind of like the filter in between that describes things back and forth to different chiefs and different tribes. And that's one that every tribe that we've talked to agrees to it. They all love to come out and do a ceremony around it and offer their own seeds, bring seeds from their medicine garden back to Manitou Springs. Not sure if that answered the question.
Well, let me ask the next question, I guess. I understood when you were talking originally, you said they're all growing up there, but they're all over. In this drawing, like there's a patch of X over here and Y over here and Z over here. It looks much more organized than just growing all over.
No, absolutely. It would be more organized. It'll probably be in a 4-direction, we'll have the plants in the 4 directions. Like one side would be sage, the opposite side could be tobacco, and so on. But the reason I brought up that they're already growing there is because it shows that without any help, it's already doing well, and they're nice and strong too. I guess because of the rains we've had, but yeah.
Would that plan include small signage in the plants, like around the outside edges, to identify them and explain why they're there?
That's something that I definitely wanted to bring up. I guess it depends. If we all thought that having a sign that explained what those plants are and offering it to anybody who needs it for their medicine, that would be something that how would that work? Would that work as somebody would be take advantage of that and just start taking the plants? Or would they be more respectful of it if they have the sign there and explain what each plant does? The only thing I have to go by around here is the medicine wheel. And that medicine wheel up on the Innerman has been growing for years and years and years. And it seems to be, it's not a native medicine wheel, and it's actually a Chinese medicine wheel, but people respect it, and none of the stones are ever missing. There's actually some gemstones that people have left in there, and those gemstones have stayed. So I'm guessing, judging by that people would respect the plants and use them accordingly, not take advantage of them. And if they do, it's okay. We can definitely have more seeds, more plants, more grass, and maybe even teach some classes up there. Like the sweetgrass has to be braided before it's cut. And the sweetgrass is braided with two people. It's usually two women or two men, and they braid it together because it's a bonding. It's a bonding between those two people. A lot of times, a lot of the children would have, they would argue or they would fight or whatever it may be, and the elders would take them and sit them and have them braid sweetgrass until they started getting along again. Or sometimes it was just a new marriage or a new love or no love, but the sweetgrass braids that communication. And I feel Manitou Springs is probably one of the best places to do something like that and bring that back to Manitou. It is part of our history. Like it or not, it's part of our history. And like it or not, we are part of that history now. And we got to leave something for our descendants.
That's great. Does anybody have any more questions for Manny?
I do.
Go ahead, Chris.
Manny, first of all, thank you so much for this presentation. It's just really exciting, and I just feel like super honored and humbled that you have brought this forward. So thank you so much. And I'm wondering, I don't know if in your opinion or if anybody in the room has an opinion about this, do we still, as a group, as a advisory group, do we still need to reach out to tribe councils, to also consult and get additional input from the sort of governmental organizations of the tribes? Or do you feel like your communication with the elders is sufficient, or do we need to do more groundwork at this point?
No, so Sacred Space Consortium, that's what we do. We'll do all the groundwork, and I already started, because I as a local artist here in Manitou, everything that I do that has native roots, I make sure, and I'm always involving the native people. We have to respect that. And so this whole process, even to just this point, I've already involved probably about 6 different elders from 5 different tribes. And so I got their backup on this. Most of those are willing to come out to offer the seeds. Let me back up a little bit. Let me tell this quick little story. So everyone's heard the story that nobody knows if it's true or not, of that when the tribes would come down to Manitou, they would leave their weapons on the cust and then come down to drink the sacred waters of Manitou Springs. A lot of people say that might be a story that was made up by Dr. Bell. Historians don't know if it's true either. I've worked with 4 different historians, and neither one of them knows if it's true. There's nothing that actually says that happened. It's a beautiful notion. It's a beautiful idea, but I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but a lot of these tribes that are the 7 main tribes of Colorado, some won't get along with each other. The Comanche won't get along with the Utes. The Utes don't get along with the Apache, and so on and so on. So I've talked to them individually and brought them together last year for the coming down on the Ute Trail back into Manitou. I don't know if anybody saw that ceremony we did. They came down on horses. And then this year, they're all willing to come back and do this ceremony where everybody creates new history, a history of peace, a history where all the native groups of Manitou, the 7 main tribes, come to this site here and bury their seeds for the future. And that very well could be a story 100 years from now that people are telling, and we know will be true, you know. And I feel like that's important, that we keep those stories being built and keep telling the stories, because our history is not told written. We sing, we dance for our history. We tell our history through our stories, through our music. And a lot of that history doesn't match historian history. And a lot of our history, because it's told through music and art, is forgotten. So here's a moment we can actually tell our history, create a history, but not just the history of the 7 tribes, but the history of the 8 tribes, the non-natives as well.
Okay, great. Thank you, Manny. Yeah, okay. If anybody,
Danu, I've got a couple questions if we have time.
Well, yeah, because what I was going to do is I was going to go ahead and jump into our old business, which opens up the discussion for Higginbotham Flats. So I'm just going to go ahead and thank you for the presentation. Manny, you're welcome to stay on board to answer any questions that we might have. And I'd like to move on to the old business for the Higginbotham Flats discussion. So go ahead, Colin.
Yeah. Hey, Manny, Colin McAllister here. Thank you so much for your presentation. This is really great. I'll try to be quick here. I guess I have some questions. The first one would be, or maybe these aren't even questions, but just things to point out. But I assume that you feel confident that that there are attractive enough stones in that site that you'll be able to use for your purposes. The other question I had is, on those rocks, are you going to engrave the names of these tribes on there? And so I imagine that you would propose some options for typography and all that sort of thing. I understand this is a very rough sketch. One question I had was about the time capsule of the seeds. So that would be like in the base, locked in the base on top of which the cairn rests with a, I don't know, a door or something to open.
Yes, most likely it's going to be a door. Originally, one of the elders that I talked to, actually just a few minutes ago before we started, he said, you can't make things easy. Because that's not part of the process. And that's kind of how it is with art as well. As an artist, as a sculptor and painter, there's a process, and you got to be part of the process. So part of the process would be that the stones will have a tube that I would weld in the middle, and then every stone would be placed on top in case anybody climbs. You know, hopefully the plants will keep them from climbing, and the stories that we'll tell. But the truth is, the way he was explaining, he said we should take each one of the stones out to reach the seeds that have been sealed in a time capsule, because that's part of the process, and then replace it with new seeds. And you know, in this type of life, we like to simplify things, and we like to make things a little bit easier to be able to get to and have the seeds ready. And I would probably talk to the botanist to see what kind of sealing we got to do, because if I just build a little door there that would seal it shut, is that going to affect the time capsule? I have to do a little more information on that. But yeah, the idea would be, my idea was just to have a little door that they can get to, and then maybe even weld it shut, and it has to be unwelded, give it a little bit of a issue to get in there. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I like the idea. Time capsule ideas are neat. I like those. Cool. What would be the name for the 8th tribe?
The 8th tribe is anybody who is not native. So it's the non-native tribe. Now, if we want to come up with one, we could definitely call it the Manitou tribe. Okay. You know, the tribe of Manitou. And as long as we don't use, what is that, Manitoid? It just seems like
Manitouites.
Manitouites. But yeah, absolutely.
I'm a Manitoid and a fellow artist.
Sounds like you have a speech impediment. You know, it's like there's there is I found the descendants of Chief Manitou, and they're still dancing. And happens that one of them lives here in Manitou. He just doesn't tell anybody. And I'm wondering if well, I've kind of put it in his ear already, if I can get him to come out and maybe do a ceremony and, you know, maybe a blessing of the people of the community. But I do have several other chiefs that are interested, and another chief, he's an arrow priest actually that lives here in Manitou as well, and he's willing to do it as well. Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, and then just again, yeah, I think this is great. I guess my last point would be, it sounds, and I'm not knowledgeable in this at all, but it sounds like, even based on what you're saying, that the history of the 7 tribes here in Manitou is something that is perhaps a little bit convoluted, or there's some disagreement about things, even maybe between the Native people. Mm-hmm. And so it seems to me like, for this to be done correctly, that has to be really vetted and set out fairly clearly by you, or, I mean, I know you're doing research on this, but it seems like that has to be somehow resolved and carefully, I don't know, authored or something, in a way that it really makes sense and is in agreement with everyone.
Yeah. So I've gotten the okay from all of these elders, and they actually worked together last year. And they'll be working together on the peace tree that was going to be at the park. I always forget the name of it. A mansion park behind.
Mansions.
Yeah. So we're going to do a peace tree that's kind of the same idea, but the peace tree is an actual tree that they'll be planting, and then they'll be doing an offering, kind of the way you leave your weapons on the cusp, and then you come down. We can't do weapons because Native people don't do weapons anymore, only in the movies. And so we're going to do offerings, like tobacco offerings, in that tree. That's going to be the peace tree, where we get all those tribes together to do a peace treaty of sorts. And if the same group will be the same group that goes up to Higginbotham and do an unveiling of the sculpture, and then we have to. I'm going to visit a few other cairns. They don't really look like the cairn, the design. They're a little bit different because our stones here are different. But looking at the stones that was already up in Higginbotham, I think those would be perfect for it. And I think there's more than 7. There's more than 8 up there already. Did a little count. And some of them are in the dirt. We'll have to pull them out, but I'm sure we can find a way to rent something to move them with.
Well, the city could probably, jump in to help with their equipment.
That'd be amazing. That would be so amazing.
I'm going to jump in.
Thanks, Mandy. That's I just wanted to put those points out there. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Colin. But I just wanted to say that if OSAC and PARAB and Save the Flats are all on the same page with this concept that Manny's proposing, that that would be the first main piece that would go into the master plan design for whoever our designing architects are to design our master plan. So basically the master plan would begin with this sculpture, and then we would build out around that.
What an honor.
That concept, yeah. So a lot of these details can be worked out down the road as the master plan develops. Mm-hmm. And but just having this main sculpture kind of piece is a really good start to get going on the master plan for Higginbotham Flats.
Oh, it would be an honor to be part of that. Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. Rebecca, Chris, Tim Beeson, Tim Bresnahan, do you guys have any opinion? Jan?
Just a thought I had is timing.
Can you be visible, Jan?
Yeah, just a sec.
Jan.
This is Jan.
Uh-oh, she's muted.
Uh-oh, muted, Jan.
Okay, sorry. So it's timing more than anything else, because I really want to honor Manny and all of the representatives of the tribes and this cairn. And I sure don't want to have it moved after it's been installed. So that's my only concern about any of it, because I think it's fabulous, honorable, such a graceful, really magnificent way of dealing with our past, and one, you know, for all of the things that have happened. But I really, I like I said, timing. I don't want to end up having to move it. So the master plan issue is big in relationship to that. So anyone that has any thoughts on that, otherwise, Manny, good on you. Thanks.
Thank you. I can definitely
This
see
is
the
Tim.
concern.
I agree with Jan. I like everything I hear, and that was my only concern. I'd hate to have something go in and think about moving it later, especially something with so much behind it.
Can we see it?
Sorry, Danu, I'm not in a place that can do that.
Oh, okay. I hear you.
Otherwise, I would.
No, I definitely see that concern. I do understand that. Mind you, that would be a 50-year plan. So I know I probably won't be here in 50 years, but I think as an artist, I used to teach my students when I was a professor. It's not really the art's the product. What's important is the process. And if we do go with the idea of removing those pieces and making that part of the ceremony, and then replacing those pieces, because the pieces are going to have a big hole in the middle with a piece-out weld in the center to keep them together, and replacing each one of those pieces back on after we receive the seeds. It's part of that process. It's part of the art continues to live, and the community, our descendants of this community, will be part of that. So whatever we leave now, we are able to make that decision today or whenever to connect with them. And maybe that's a lesson. Maybe the lesson is that stone. Maybe the lesson is moving that stone or coming together to find a way to get those stones off and putting them back in. We could do a plan B somewhere in there as well, that, you know, if that's going to be something completely impossible that they can get to, they just have to unweld a box, you know. But it's like that old Boy Scout thing where everybody pulls together at once on a rope to be able to move something. It's kind of like that, you know. If the mines could build the pyramids, and, you know, in Easter Island they can erect those, that we can't move 7 stones that are 4 feet tall, that'd be a tough one.
Well said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Manny. This is Rebecca. Thank you for your presentation. I'm so excited about this opportunity. Yeah, Danu knows that I've been kind of pushing for some sort of notion like this for a while. So I'm very excited about it. With the timeline, I guess I was a little unclear, like how soon were you planning to do this? Because could you just wait for us? I mean, we're all excited to do something with, you know, the area, but maybe we could just be patient a little bit.
No, the patience, no problem. I mean, I can wait as long as needed. The only thing that would keep me is finding the plants, because I have to take into consideration seeding, new growth, how to plant, when's the good time to plant, you know. That's the garden part. As far as the stones, I know they're going to start working on Ruxton. And after a little conversation I had with the mayor, I also understood that they're possibly going to use part of Higginbotham Flats to have some of the construction, I guess, equipment up there. And most likely it won't go that far to where the garden would be, but I just kind of, more than anything, just wanted to find a way to say, hey, don't go this far. This is a sacred site. We've done ceremonies here. And by the way, it very well could be sacred site. So I don't know if anybody knows Jim. He is one of the lead, I can't even say that word, spelunker. Can't say that word without giggling, Spelunker, and here in town. And Jim said that when they were younger, that they found all kinds of bones and tools and things on that area. And it feels like it might be that. Just when you're up there, there's something there that feels like, why wouldn't anybody sit here and contemplate life and maybe have a fire and feed their children? Yeah, it's hailing there, Tim. I mean, Colin, it's starting to hail.
Yeah, I was checking out the plants. Thanks, Manny.
And I just wanted to comment on also Chris's point about, you know, consultation with different populations. So at my core, I'm an anthropologist and a linguist, and I work with tribes, and I know how contentious it truly can be. Absolutely. So, and while I totally trust that you've done due diligence,
oh, absolutely,
I think it would be also beneficial just to have a few more checks in place, because I know what happens when someone wasn't even just asked, right? So maybe we can kind of filter that into the process with the master plan too, just to have maybe multiple consultations, just to ease the process along.
I can't disagree with that whatsoever. I think I will be more than happy to bring some of the chiefs out and have a meeting, and then some of the archaeologists like Ana Cordova, who works for Garden of the Gods, bring her out as well. And you know, Alex, he's a Pache as well, and he's a botanist there at the city, and bring all them out and just you know, fill the location, maybe get some more information from them and the elders. But it comes down to it comes down to if Manitou Springs feels like this is the right thing to do, and do we want to be part of it? And but right now, I've spoken to a lot of the lead chiefs and leaders and on the elders, and they're all love the idea. They all want to be part of this. And in fact, I've gotten a few. I would be upset or pissed off if I wasn't invited to be part of this. Yeah.
So I'm a little confused about something, Danu. I don't understand. Is there something in the master plan that says that Higginbotham Flats, is it spoken for in some way? What is the hesitation about the master plan, other than this is a definite, this is an item? But I'm lost. Does somebody?
Yeah, here, let me try to explain. In order for us to create a master plan for a park, we have to have components in order to be able to write up a request for proposals for an architect designer to design the master plan. So this piece that Manny just presented would be one of the main pieces. And then I think the master plan will kind of revolve around the Seven Rock Cairn. So then the landscape architects would take in all of the information, like the signage, like the, you know, the components that everyone would like to see up there to best represent Higginbotham Flats as a cultural park. And then they would go ahead and start coming up with some design drawings. At that point, then the design drawings would come back to PARAB for approval, PARAB and OSAC, and probably Save the Flats. And then once everybody can agree on the design drawings, which one they might like, because they might give us a couple different option scenarios based on the components that we identify that we want to see in that master plan, then they have to take it to the public and present it to the public
and
for their input. Okay, so it's a very involved process. Nothing happens quickly here. So, man, you got plenty of time to work out all your details and kinks. So, and then it'll eventually, you know, get whittled down to a final master plan drawing, which will then have to go probably back to, well, it'll have to go back to city council after we all approve it. And then city council has to say yay or nay.
So does that mean that the part we just talked about, that Manny just talked about and checking to make sure that the tribal leaders are committed to this process, I guess it'd be better to say a process as opposed to this project. at this point. But could that not go ahead? I mean, wouldn't that be the first step to make sure everybody's on board?
That what Manny has to do for his research and for his buy-in can continue on and go regardless of what we do with our master plan, because those components can be added in when it's time to develop.
Because then they'd be there when you
That's
need
correct. They would
Manny, wait again.
Right. You would be a part of the master planning process of the components that would be important to have, as well as, you know, the signage that you talk about, and any kind of, I'm not sure if it would have to go through some kind of engineering, the rocks. So that would be the one piece that might have to, you know, be
really technical.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But Tim Beeson, I see you had a question there too.
Yeah, Danu. Do you know if the Serpentine Drive master plan and the Higginbottom's Flat master plan are going to be combined? If that's one thing or two things, because we have a fair amount of money dedicated to doing the Serpentine Drive master plan. We got 50,000 from OSAC and another, I believe, 50,000 from one of the federal agencies to go along with that. So that's a lot of bucks for a master plan. We should be able to get things moving ahead with that. I don't know if that's two master plans or one. Jillian, do you know that?
Well, can I just clarify what I can from what I understand, Jim?
Yeah, sure.
So OSAC's $50,000 is specifically for the creek walk, if I'm not mistaken.
No.
Now the path that the creek walk takes is what you folks have to figure out and come up with your master plan design as to how that creek walk is going to look to be able to connect.
Two different things. We've got $100,000 dedicated to the creek walk. We've got $50,000 dedicated to the master plan for certain.
Right. Well, so my understanding from Skylar was that OSAC was going to have a master plan for the creek walk to make a connection up to Higginbotham Flats somehow. And then
somebody's going to have a master plan for that. And then it would be two separate documents, two separate master plans.
Right, because PARAB has $60,000 set aside for our master plan for the park.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Thanks. Oh, by the way, Manuel, just wanted to note that Chief Manitou was actually not native to this area.
He was Pueblan, but that's the mistake that a lot of people have not figured out. So being Pueblo Indian, he actually was not native to here, but there was Pueblo Indians here in Manitou.
Right.
And so they are part of the group of natives that were here, of the 19 group of natives that were here, but they're not part of the largest original 7. But keeping in that idea, it wouldn't be a bad idea to have their representation either, and get them involved in here and reinstated. His children are mixed with Ute natives, and so his children that are from Chief Manitou are also half from here. So they're born here, born in Manitou or born in the Springs, and they are here. They danced here their entire life. Their grandchildren. Mm-hmm.
A lot of people were born here, but you're going to get an awfully big pile of rocks if you start including.
Yeah. And there's a few people I wouldn't mind putting under the rocks.
Well, we will edit that out.
Oh, you don't have to. Well, I appreciate you guys. It's an honor. Thank you so much. Please have any questions about history. I'm a bit of a historian as well, and I do have connections with all the tribes. Anybody has any information or anything that you'd like to know, I have direct connection with the tribes, and we have a large group here in the spring in Manitou that nobody even knows about.
So did I miss that? Do you have an organization?
We do. It's called Sacred Sage Consortium. Sacred Sage Consortium.
And do we contact you if we have questions, or?
Sure, feel free to. There's no true leader of it, but we all have our base. You know,
how would we get a hold of you?
I'm sorry.
How would we get a hold of you? I was just thinking maybe OSAC would also like to have you in about this.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be happy to. Actually, Danu has my information. If you don't mind sharing it to anybody who needs it, any extra information you might need about any other project, I'll be happy to do a little due diligence and figure out where we need to go and make sure nobody is disrespected in the process. And you got to understand that Native people understand that we don't, how would I put it without sounding, we're not needed in that process, but we are sometimes wanted. And it's an honor to be wanted for any of those processes. You know, you can just avoid that and go straight to doing whatever needs to be done. But when we are invited to be part of that, you're inviting our ancestors that are on this earth and that are on the area we're at, and that's very much appreciated by everybody. And we're not here just to make things harder for anyone by any means. And Sacred Sage Consortium kind of lives in both worlds. Almost everybody here lives in both worlds, so we'll be happy to be that what we like to call the pipe in between both worlds.
Okay, great. Thank you, Manny.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I appreciate y'all. Y'all have a good one. Bye-bye. See you.
Okay, so I guess in order for us to have some kind of direction, I'd like to hear from everybody what basic components that we should include in our request for bids, beside the seven rock cairn and the medicine garden, and then signage, right?
Wait, when you say a bid, do you mean from Manny? Like you're asking him how much?
No, this is for the architect, the design architect who's going to draw up the master plan.
Oh, I see. Okay, this is related to the master plan.
Correct. Yeah, because I'm already in master plan mode here. How to get that moving? Yeah.
Danu, this is Chris.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, definitely the sculpture, obviously. And I'm a little bit curious. I know it's very conceptual at this point, and all the details aren't worked out, but is the plan to have the boulders like engraved?
From my understanding, yes.
Okay. I have feelings about that. I feel like perhaps aesthetically, and also just to avoid people being like, oh, well, my rock is in this position and my rock, I don't know, just to maybe leave them more in their natural state might be less problematic in some ways. Or like say a tribe is forgotten, or a non-native person, or a Black person, or a brown person, somebody is, a Chinese person is, like, I'm not represented in this stack of rocks. Like it's just sort of centers more than Native people, which I think is what the whole point is. I think trying to include everybody in the stack of rocks is unnecessary. So anyway, again, that's all conceptual, and I think I'm in the weeds with that, but obviously, so for the RFB, we need the garden, and perhaps more benches or seating for people you know, that are surround, you know, perhaps so that they could interact with the sculpture and the garden, instead of just like looking off into the overlook area over town.
Mm-hmm.
Can I add something to the rock question?
Sure,
Maybe,
go ahead, Judith.
maybe you're going to need some kind, I would think, of a bore test, because it may be that rock, if you try to engrave it, will split. And also back to, I think, Christina, on top of that, I was thinking he had it on those rocks in that drawing he did, you know, this second slide, he had it on the rocks. But I don't know, would that be, I'm just hypothesizing, would that be considered interfering with the rock itself and maybe not appropriate? I don't know. But certainly a bore test, because you start drilling the thing, what happens if it falls apart?
Yeah.
Somebody's got to make that determination and maybe assign parallel or something very indigenous to these tribes in signage might be much safer, less expensive, and certainly safer for the rocks.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's something to definitely explore. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jen.
Just to add to that briefly, you know, maybe we would encourage Manny to not engrave the rocks, but instead have a plaque that has the information, but still have the cairn, so it's more natural. Right. The other thing I was going to say, though, is that one time we talked about having a crusher fine path kind of circulating the area so that it could be a vantage point and being able to have it ADA compliant. So I think that's still possible. And that could help end up kind of creating a safety area, kind of. And then, of course, some native plantings there that could be pollinator, as well as, you know, some of these native plants that Manny was mentioning too. I think if we have sweetgrass, boy, that would be really powerful for people that have read anything about sweetgrass. So that's all.
Yeah, great, thanks. Anybody else want to add to that? Because I'm going to read it back.
I don't really agree with what they said. I like the engraving. I like that. I think it's a teaching moment for people to see who traveled through here. And I feel like if a rock is starting to split, then get another one. I mean, people make kitchens out of granite all the time. I mean, there's a lot of that going on. So that's my only thing. I like his idea, and I'm a teacher at heart, so you know, I kind of like having the engraving on. If it doesn't bother him, I mean, he would know, you know.
Yeah, and maybe the architects will know too. I mean, or I guess it would be a geologist question, somebody who knows about rocks.
Right.
Yeah, because there's a bunch of rocks, and a lot of the rocks that are up there on the flats all came from the Manitou Avenue Maps project. I asked the Wildcat just to leave all those big rocks up there. I thought we could use them to incorporate them in our park as visual buffers or just rock walls or just whatever. So we have the sculpture, we have the medicine garden, we have some kind of signage. The theme should revolve around the indigenous people. Yeah, that's kind of like a sacred spot. I'd like to figure out some way to collect rainwater, and that could be like some kind of a shelter that would have a picnic table underneath with some kind of a shed roof that would collect the rainwater coming off into rain barrels that would provide water. More seating, crusher-fine paths, and just more pollinator native plants.
I think the shelter is a great idea because it's really exposed up there.
Yeah.
Or sun, it's really exposed.
Yeah, I think too, if people are gonna, you know, have sort of, you know, ceremony up there and, you know, events where there may be dozens of people participating, some shelter is a really great idea.
Okay.
And I'd also say any parking, make sure it's not too close to any of these indigenous places, that there should be a really good buffer so that people have to actually be intentional about going to visit.
Yep.
Oh yeah, we had talked about maybe making some berms or something kind of between the parking area and the actual park.
Right, and the property next door to us.
And
while still having ADA accessibility.
Sure. I mean, like maybe we could have like a walkway. Like I guess walkways is something we need.
Yeah. Tim Beeson. Now we're talking about our parkland, and it brought to mind that lot that's next door to us that's owned by Adventures Out West.
Right.
Yeah.
Greg Wallen.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And that Scott Hunt, I believe they own it. Is it okay if I kind of talk about that here? Or should I wait?
Go ahead and I'll talk a little bit about it.
Okay.
But,
so, yeah, so you folks, you know that there's that big lot that's between our city-owned property and the storage units, and the Adventures Out West people and this real estate gentleman by the name of Scott Hunt wanted to use that property for a third marijuana dispensary up there with parking, a lot of parking. And that didn't pass at our last election. And so they have now since gotten approval from planning to have parking up there for the Rainbow Falls Park. So planning agreed to that. And so as it stands now, they have the right to turn their property into a parking lot for Rainbow Falls. Now, I don't know if they're going to be required to do a traffic study or what they're required to do, but right now, planning approved the use of that property as a parking lot. So I approached Tim Beeson to ask him if OSAC might be willing to maybe partner with PARAB to maybe buy the lower section, which is the section of the property that is closest to the drop-off that would protect the view shed. Because how it shows up on the county assessor's records, it still shows it being divided into two separate properties, even though in other documentation that I've looked at, it shows as just one big lot. So I was asking Tim if he could look into that to see if it is indeed still two separate properties or two separate lots, or if it is just one lot. And if it was two separate lots, that maybe we could approach the owners with some kind of a offer to maybe buy that lower part of the property, or at this point, just explore that.
Chris, oh, sorry.
Well, go ahead, Tim, and then we'll come back, Chris.
Okay. Yeah, Danu and I have talked a little bit about this, and I've also talked to Nancy Wilson a little bit, the co-chair or vice chair. By the way, I'm the chair now of OSAC. So here's the thing. This isn't a normal piece of property that OSAC would buy. It's a valuable commercial piece of property in Manitou Springs. And that's not usually the kind of thing we go after. We try to get heavily discounted property. And it really has to be a special deal for OSAC to pick it up. And a lot of times we like to pick it up for free, which, you know, isn't probably going to happen here. So here's my point: is that I don't think we can't make a competitive offer to Greg Wellen and whoever his partners are. But the thing that I can convey to Greg is that if at some point they decide that they want to sell that property or in any other way get rid of it, that they allow OSAC to have a seat at the table. And at that point, we can start the conversation. And I'll bring up the thought idea that, if they did want to get rid of it, that we could make an offer, that we're not going to be competitive with somebody that's got a viable commercial interest in it, but it would be a wonderful thing to do for the city, so on and so forth. So I guess to know what I'm saying is I'm certainly willing to go to Greg and say, we're out here, we're aware of this piece of property. If you decide to move this in any way, please let us know, and we want to be talking with you when you do that. And that's about as far as I think we can go with it right now. And it is a separate parcel. As far as the assessor's site.
Tim, do you think you can put that up on the screen and share that?
I could do that. Give me a minute to get there.
Yeah, just so PARAB kind of has an idea of what we're talking about.
Let's see.
While you're looking that up, can I just ask my question?
Yes, I'm sorry, Chris.
That's okay. I guess I don't understand what the incentive is, or like, how are they parking cars up there? So is the city paying them to use, or El Paso County, so they're just like allowing cars to park there for free?
No, my understanding, it's gonna be a private parking lot. So when I'm assuming that they're going to be charging people money to park up there if they want to go to Rainbow Falls. The problem, though, is that the way for the people to get down to Rainbow Falls, they're going to have to walk down Serpentine. And I don't know if the CDOT's going to approve of that, because people drive.
Yeah, they own the property. They're a private entity, and they own the property.
You're talking about Greg Wellens?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's commercially zoned, so they have a right to use it. And that way. Let me see if I can share this. Okay, and I'm blocking out everything else. So, oh, come on, where is that?
Well, maybe, Tim, maybe what you can do is send it over to me, and I'll just I can just send it out to everybody via email, just so everyone kind of has an idea. But the reason why I approached Tim with this idea was that if we could buy that bottom half of that property, it would be a nice continuous park space that we would be able to have for the city, and it would protect our view shed of Manitou, and it would provide a contiguous connection between the parkland that's in front of the storage units and the parkland. Oh, all right, Tim, did you get it? Yeah. All right, great.
Now let me make it big enough so people can see it.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, so do you guys see where that little shaded portion is?
Pardon me? It's right here. It's the green that's highlighted here. And I wanted to, I can zoom in and out on that. Let me do that a little bit. So if I zoom out, this is Higginbotham Heights up here, Higginbotham Heights up here. This is where the storage units are. This is where the current parking is, or at least where the gravel area is. Manitou owns this piece, this piece, this piece, and this piece over here.
Right.
So this piece right here, this kind of tab off of Adventure Out West property, is what Danu is talking about. And that's 15,250 square foot, so about a third of an acre piece of property right there.
So then, in essence, that whole lower portion would all be park, would all be city park, and would just protect our view shed of Manitou.
Yeah, it's a nice idea. It's just a question of whether they're willing to let it go at a rate, price that's reasonable to
right. Right.
Is that property buildable, Tim?
Sure. It's a nice flat piece of property.
Okay.
Could be built. Water and sewer would be another question. I don't know how they would work that, but certainly they've built the occupied building up there that where the managers are for the storage space. So it can be done.
Yeah. Okay, well, great, Tim. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Yeah. Really quick, this is Rebecca. I do think it's important that we also consider where people are going to park when they do attend this space. I don't want to create a giant parking lot, but we are going to have space for, so with the request for proposals, they're going to have a few spots up there. Because how else are like the elders who want to use the space going to get there? Right. And how would we designate that versus, the rainbow balls, or I don't know, questions to consider.
That's a real good point, because we really don't have we don't have access to drive to any of our this street. One thing to recognize with the excuse me, Danu, I hope I'm not interrupting you.
No, go ahead, Tim.
One thing to recognize with these assessors maps is this street does not exist. It is platted, but there's nothing there up to about here, and then there's a dirt road going down here. But this street right here does not exist. So we would have to either create a road here or travel across somebody else's property to get to that. So that's an issue. Yeah.
Okay, anything else for Tim? Sorry, I kind of veered off course, but I figured since we were all here, it'd be great to just share that little informational thought and the idea that Tim and I were talking about.
I think that whatever we can do as PARAB, or, to promote that idea and to get that property is important for this park.
Yeah, I do too.
It is. It just could be a very expensive piece of property. As Danny, as you pointed out, they spent many hundreds of thousands of dollars to get that property up there. So there's going to have to be some incentive for them to get rid of that, and maybe that could be maybe that could have something to do with the requirement for rezoning on the other things that they want to do in town. So.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you, Tim. I appreciate that.
Sure.
All righty. Okay, I'm gonna get back on course here. thank you guys for letting me indulge in that a little bit. Is there any other questions that we want to talk about, or any subjects or anything else, or do you feel like we've sufficiently kind of covered what we need to cover to move forward?
We're good to go until we know more.
Yeah, so really quick, what would be the timeline then? So we just put out a bid now? Is that the next thing we want to do, or?
Yeah, I think if everyone's comfortable with these components that I read to you tonight, then I think that we can, I can get with Jillian and put together an RFP and get it out and see what we can come up with. I mean, if you want, we can discuss it a little bit more before we do that, but it sounds like we sort of, maybe less is better.
I do have one component I would like to see up there, if possible, is a composting toilet.
Oh.
Like something that wouldn't use water. And, perhaps the city could go, the staff could lock it at night, when the park is closed, just like they do the other restrooms.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a long way from a bathroom up there.
Yeah. Down to Rainbow Falls.
Yeah. Well, there's a bathroom at Rainbow Falls.
I
don't think there is.
I don't think so.
They were open. I thought there was. Maybe not. You could be right. Sorry. But that would be the next logical place.
Yeah. Well, you know.
No, yeah. So anyway, I don't know how much those cost.
Okay, but that would be a good component. I mean, they have great composting toilets up there on Pikes Peak at the fishing places. They like to go up there and fish. They have great composting toilets up there. So.
Hey, Danu.
Yeah, go ahead.
One thing that is very successful, or was, it's been closed, but is at Rainbow Falls, the parks, El Paso County parks, installed in a very actually not very noticeable way, but it sure is popular, a donation pipe, and it is very, very well funded.
A donation pipe?
Yeah. So it's just this metal pipe. There's no way to get it unless you're, I don't know how they do it, but it just has a slit in it. It just says, these donations will go to maintenance of Rainbow Falls, blah, blah. But it has turned out to be a real moneymaker because people really like it. They really like Rainbow Falls. And it might be something to consider, as long as it's not prominent. And I think it's really a great idea. Because people do feel this was a rewarding experience and they want to somehow protect it. You should let them do that. Oh, what's wrong with that?
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you.
Might help with our water, with getting water up there, and who knows, but it's nice because it's a no-brainer, basically. You don't have to worry about anybody getting into it.
Right. Okay, thank you. Tim, go ahead. Tim Beeson.
Yeah. I just wanted to point out that I believe it was Skylar, one of our previous park managers, that got us started on this. Sorry, the master plan for. I've forgotten the name of the street up there.
Serpentine Drive?
Serpentine, thank you, Serpentine. And his idea was, and it was a grand idea, the way to do this would be to incorporate, and we need somebody to work with El Paso County for this, but incorporate the and I'm not sure if it included Higginbotham Flats or not, but we could get a major GOCO grant for this kind of thing if we had these pieces involved. And that's apparently what in
and then tie it with the whale tail to Higginbotham Flats.
The whale tail.
That was the goal.
Right.
And we have the whale tail, but we don't have some of those pieces, right?
So there is a grand scheme floating around here in Skylar Beck's brain. So if we can ever get in touch with him.
Yeah, I think that maybe there is a possibility we could get some kind of GOCO grant funding, because now that you mention it, Tim, I do recall that GOCO was more interested in funding cultural, relevant cultural pieces of parks or land or whatever, or having that tie in, having the creek walk tie into a cultural park or something like that. That it could be combined.
They got money, and that's what inspired us to go ahead and provide money for the Serpentine Drive Master Plan.
Right. Huh. Well, it sounds like we ought to stay in touch and try to work together on this bit. So. Okay, great. Well, thank you, everybody. I'm gonna move on here with our agenda here. Tim and Judith, you're welcome to stay on if you like, or if you want to click off, you can do that as well.
I do have to excuse myself. This was really very exciting. Thank you for me and Tim.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for sharing.
Night all. Thanks.
Okay, we're going to move on to our reports. I pretty much reported what I had to report, which is that the Adventures Out West has the go-ahead to have their private parking lot for Rainbow Falls. I don't think Michelle Weatherholt's here tonight for the council liaison, but Jillian, since you attended that meeting, do you want to just briefly bring up the date to what council last reviewed in terms of our contract with Fort Copeland and Mock for construction drawings for phase 2?
Yeah, definitely. So the Soda Springs Park construction drawing contract for the playground improvements, it was on our consent calendar and it did get pushed back to next Tuesday. There was a contradiction spotted in the contract and I was asked to review it and not redo the contract, but make sure that the language was cleared up so there was not a contradiction. So it will be on the consent calendar for the August 15th council meeting.
Okay, great. Any questions about that, you guys? Okay, if not, open space, their minutes aren't available, but we sort of had the open space update there with what I met with Tim about. And then Jillian, Park and Rec Department, you want to go ahead and give us a brief rundown here of your report?
Yeah, definitely. And I apologize for not having this in our packet today, but I do have it written down. So we do have a bench and we plan to install it by the pickleball courts by the end of this month. And I was going to ask the board if there was a specific location you want the bench, because there are a couple of different options.
Where's this going?
Oh, it's a bench by the pickleball court.
Oh, the pickleball court. Okay.
What makes, Colin, speak into this, but what makes sense to me is as you open the door, it opens out and it's on the south side of that door opening. And that to me makes sense to put the bench to the south side of the sidewalk that goes into the pickleball court. What do you think, Colin?
South side. So that means that when you go, if you're exiting the courts, that's to the right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think that does make sense. And we just want, obviously the bench is going to face towards the pickleball courts, right, Jillian?
Yes. So they can watch the game. Right?
I think I think we probably need 2 benches eventually. I don't know if that was ever discussed, but.
Yeah, I agree with 2 benches, but let's start with 1 and whatever makes sense so that we aren't interfering with any kind of maintenance on the tree that's right there, but the shade by the tree would be good.
Okay.
So I guess also the other, I can't picture it well enough in my mind, Jan, maybe you can, but we want to make sure, so the bench is going to be kind of in front of where the paddle rack is.
Yes.
We want to make sure the bench isn't too close so that people are going to get paddles or kind of stumbling over the feet of the folks sitting on the bench.
Good point. Yep.
If you want, Jillian, I can go look at it again. I just can't, I don't have it in my mind.
Yeah, if you want to take a look at it and let me know. We're flexible with the location for it.
How long is the bench?
It's a great question. It's an average size bench. Do you know, Danu?
Maybe 6 feet.
Yeah, 6 feet.
6 feet. Okay.
72 inches.
And it's probably about 2 feet deep. Is that it? The floor print of it would be 2 feet deep or so?
Ish, maybe 18 inches at the least.
Okay. All right. Yes. I will go down there very soon and look, but yes, this sounds great.
Okay. And I wanted to ask about the funding for the painting of the pickleball lines on the tennis court. So if we move forward with that, was that a project that PARAB was going to fund, or had John or Skylar identified funds within Parks and Recreation? I couldn't find any notes on that.
You know, that money could come out of the El Paso Becker's maintenance fund.
Okay, El Paso Becker's maintenance fund?
Yes. And Jillian, I'll go ahead and send you the line item for that, okay?
Okay. Thank you. And I did find another community that has a hybrid pickleball tennis court. It's in Asheville, and I assume it's Asheville, North Carolina. But they use a shared schedule for their court. And so like Thursdays and Fridays from 2 to 10, it's pickleball. And then before that, it's tennis. But I realized they can do that because they have 18 different tennis/pickleball courts.
Oh,
so definitely not what we're working with, but I think with proper signage, we can make it work. So Colin, I remember you were gonna work with me to develop some signage to update on the pickleball court and the tennis court that will be a hybrid. So,
yes, we can do that.
Okay, that would be awesome, and maybe something we can work on this month. I know we haven't had a chance to connect since the July 10th meeting.
Sure. Do you want to like email me a draft or something? Is that the best way to go about it? And then I can look, because you probably have a better idea of the kind of general things that are around. Or if you want me to drop a draft first too, I could. It's
happy to send a draft. There's a lot of language already out there for hybrid courts, so we would just need to adapt it to ours.
Okay.
May I add something? I don't know if this is applicable, but the city of Golden does even and odd days in their open space for mountain bikes and hiking on certain trails. And it's been working for years. Everybody gets it. It requires minimal signage. That could be an option. We could probably see an example of that on the city's website.
Thanks, Tim. Jan, you have your hand up?
Yeah, Jan.
Yeah, just anecdotally, I don't think there needs to be anything very lengthy and formal for the tennis court hybrid pickleball court. I think if you just basically say tennis players have dibs, and as soon as a game is over with pickleballers, just anecdotally, I have not seen more than maybe once, maybe twice a week, tennis players are on the court. So, and I'm not there all the time.
I agree, and I think we can have some language about that. But yeah, I really do think that, and I've said this before, that tennis players should have priority on that. I wouldn't want, Jillian, for myself to say like, oh, it's Tuesday priority pickleball or whatever.
Right.
I think it should be tennis priority, and if there are no tennis players, then pickleball. So,
right, especially
in the same thing as far as finishing a pickleball game before you're kicked out, so to speak.
Yeah, of course, pickleball. If tennis players are right,
if someone is there to play tennis, then it's a tennis.
Yep. I can, Jillian, yeah, if you want to send me some hybrid language, I would be happy to.
All right, I can do that.
Oh, thanks.
And then I wanted just to issue a reminder. So for the November 14th City Council meeting, PARAB will have your annual presentation. So I'm sure that's something you're familiar with doing, but Alex, our PIO, is going to send out a template to follow, and I can send it to Danu. Are you the correct person for that? Okay.
The budget.
Yeah.
When is that? That's in November?
November 14th.
Okay, so that means August, September. So we should have, I should put the budget, final budget approval for, how about next month, you guys? Basically, it's kind of what the biggest priority we identified was like the 60,000 for professional services for Higginbotham Flats, and then the rest is just kind of miscellaneous kind of stuff. So, but I'll go ahead and put together. I'll get with Rebecca Wood and Rebecca Davis and go over the budget too with her. So either
send it out next month.
All right, September, October. I'll see what's going on. Okay, does that sound okay with you guys? Okay, go ahead, Jillian.
All right, and we are planning on installing a new paddle rack so going back to pickleball.
Right.
We're gonna install a new paddle rack, but I was wondering if there were any, so I don't know if it should go above the existing paddle rack or next to it. I didn't know if there were any thoughts on that before because I was thinking just above the existing one.
I think it should go to the side, Jillian, so that there's no confusion about which paddle is the closest to the getting in the court.
Okay.
Plus,
might also be a little high for shorter players to reach. Right, Manu? Is that what you're saying?
We can put it to the side. All right. And just a couple more things. So we were considering, a few of our staff members brought up the idea of possibly, I don't know the history of the labyrinth in Wheeler Park. I do know that it is difficult to maintain that property with the existing labyrinth. So one of the ideas that came from staff was planting a tree there to provide shade and putting a picnic table under that tree. So I wanted to know, and this might be an agenda item for next month, but what are your thoughts on the labyrinth at Wheeler Park? And I really don't know the origin of that.
Are they suggesting doing away with the labyrinth?
Yes.
Oh.
It's just a suggestion, but I wanted to mention it here.
Yeah.
Not the background of it.
Right. Well, Chris, why don't you address this? That sort of, why don't you talk about this a little bit?
It was a project we did last year. So I think scrapping it probably wouldn't be my first choice. I don't know about everybody else. I do think that the contractors we went with didn't meet our expectations. I think that in hindsight, it would have been better to go with one of the other people or groups that bid, namely the concrete couch people. I think that would have been a better community partner for us. And if we want to stick with the labyrinth, I would propose working with them to make adjustments so that it is easier to maintain. So those are my thoughts about it. I haven't talked to Danu or anybody about my ideas about that. I know it has been kind of a weed fest over there, as in like and we've had a super rainy year. So like the weeds are just like out of control everywhere. So anyway, those are my thoughts, but I'm one person.
Jan?
I like the idea, Chris, and I think if Concrete Couch can come up with a way to kind of maybe more stabilize the labyrinth itself, that wouldn't cost too much money, you know, Mr. Wood, I'm sure would help us out.
And I think we always envisioned this, you know, as kind of a community project anyway. So I don't know if we could find a way to do that and to keep cost at a minimum, perhaps.
Can a tree and a labyrinth coexist?
Totally. Totally. Have you, yeah. Has anyone been to La Forêt? Anyway, their labyrinth has many trees. It's gorgeous. And so there's tons of shade and you're walking among the trees. And I know our labyrinth is not at that scale, but you could plant a tree in the middle, you know, like why not?
I think partially why we had minimal stuff is, and I agree with what everybody said, right? We shouldn't have gone with the contractors, high, you know, whatever. But we could do something cheap. But water is such an issue there that to plant a brand new tree there and to really make it thrive, it'll be challenging. Especially, again, this year's been not normal. So we might want to think about that.
Yeah. Even with weeds, I think that if we could stabilize it, if Steve could find a way to stabilize the labyrinth so that it would at least be in place and wouldn't be tossed around or kicked around or whatever, that would be a beginning spot. And then, you know, with climate change, we don't know how much we're going to have for water. We might not have any next year.
Does anybody else have any thoughts first before I share? Yeah, I guess I don't want to do away with the labyrinth. I mean, that, for your background, Jillian, that was one of our first projects that PARAB did, where we went through the whole process of coming up with the master plan and the public process, and then and we did end up spending, you know, a good chunk of money on it. So my feeling would be, if we could just revamp the labyrinth to maybe have, if Parks staff is willing to, bring in bigger, larger rocks and kind of dig it down deeper, because originally that was the proposal, that they were going to use big rocks and half bury them into the dirt so people couldn't move them around. But also there was, you know, and maybe throw some weed barrier cloth under the rocks and around the rocks too, maybe. And another thought could be to add crusher fines for the path that would kind of limit the weeds around that. If we could just,
or just, I don't know the cost, but if you could get to a depth of 4 to 5 inches of crusher fine or pea gravel, and then add some shade, you'd probably be there.
Yeah.
No weed barrier.
Oh, no weed barrier? That doesn't work so good?
Well, if you could get to that kind of a depth. I mean, if you wanted to add weed barrier too, sure. Do the belt and suspenders.
The what,
so to speak. Do the belt and suspenders.
Oh, I gotcha. So, well, yeah. So I think we're all kind of like not in favor of getting rid of the labyrinth entirely, but maybe if we could rework it so it's easier to maintain by minimizing the weeds, and maybe looking at digging it deeper, so, and then doing maybe the crusher fines or pea gravel or something like that. That would, anything that would minimize the weeds and to make the rocks more permanent would be maybe the way I think we would prefer to go.
And just to clarify, you had a contractor install the labyrinth?
Yeah.
Okay.
But they had no supervision. I was out there every day with them. And it was just, they didn't really know. The 2 people they left out there, given that they had no direction, I thought they did pretty good. But Yeah, it was really pretty much a disappointment. So
well, we have a labyrinth. I mean, it's on our city website and everything, which is pretty awesome. It's one of the things I put out when I was researching the Parks and Recreation Department. I do have one more item. So we are looking at possibly finding a way to enclose and secure the stage when it's not in use at the Bud Ford Pavilion. And that would be something that we use if we move forward with it using our beautification charter that John started earlier this year. Just to prevent the stage from getting damaged when it's not in use. We have a camera on it right now, and we've seen fires and paint being poured on it, and our maintenance staff, they work pretty hard keeping it clean, but we are looking at options similar to something like a gate, or I don't want to use the word garage door, but something to secure the stage from folks getting on it when they shouldn't be on there. So again, we can have this on the next agenda, or if anyone has any thoughts now about that or questions.
Oh, go ahead, Jen.
Regrettably, I think it has come to that. I hate the idea, but I think it has come to that.
Anybody else? So, you know, we had Concrete Couch do all that fencing around the pavilion. They had gates that could lock. All right. And that was the intention, was to keep people out so they wouldn't be doing those kind of things. And because this has been a long-standing issue forever. So we all agreed on having Steve do all the gates and fencing. And that was a huge, big deal for the community to have to swallow that. But I would suggest that instead of trying to enclose the stage, which there isn't enough room on that stage to do that, and the way it's built, it's so old and historic. I don't know what kind of mechanism they're going to find that isn't going to be visible and look unsightly. Plus, it's going to be very expensive. I would say, let's try to figure out a way where we can lock the pavilion up earlier and keep people out of there. Or with the cameras, figure out when people are, doing those things, and maybe try to, work with what we have first instead of spending more money to add more barriers and fencing and unsightly things. I mean, I understand what they're thinking about, but at the same time, I feel like doing the enclosure with the locking gates, we should try to utilize that first before we start, spending thousands of dollars to build like some kind of a barrier for the stage, because frankly, there's no place to store that kind of thing. It's going to stick out. You're going to see it. And the performers need as much of that stage space as they can. Fit everybody on there, especially Little London Winds. And then if it's going to be a roll-up thing, you're going to see it, and it's unsightly. I don't know. That's my feeling. Let's either lock the pavilion up sooner so people can't access it, or yeah, I guess that would be my feedback. Instead of spending thousands, it's just going to be expensive, and it's going to probably need engineering, and probably need some kind of structural something, because that stage is old. And Nancy Fortune was wanting to make it look beautiful. Well, that pavilion's not going to look beautiful with like these barriers. And the first thing I think about is in New York City. They have those roll down gates that they close off. That's what I'm envisioning, or else the accordion things, and they're going to fold up and be on the side of the stage when they're not in use. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a wicked problem. We also don't want the stage to get damaged, severely, and then not just be unusable for any amount of time. So, but I definitely see your point.
Right. And I see the city's point too. What I suggested was, let's have a little bit more police patrolling down there. Have the police cruise through there more often, on their bikes or on foot patrol. It's law enforcement. And whenever I go down there, I never see any policemen going through there. So that's my 2 cents.
All right, any other thoughts on the potential of, yeah, Christina?
Yeah, the only thing is that, you know, I can see both pros and cons of having some type of barrier or whatever. But I remember when we were talking about the Soda Springs Park master plan, somebody had brought up, and I don't know if this is I don't think this is in the master plan, but you know, improving the sound, like for amplified music. So if that ever happened, like say they got like a sound, I mean, usually bands or whoever, they bring in sound systems. So I don't know if it would ever be a thing where like the city had its own sound system, but if that were the case, obviously it would need to be protected even more. But yeah, it's tough. What about like a sign that says, please stay off the stage? I mean, there's not even a sign. Could start with something like sort of low impact like that.
We could definitely start with a sign. We're good at signs. Okay, yeah, I just wanted to get that like a general feedback on that one. So thank you. And that is all I have.
All right, great. Okay, it is 7:45. I can either table the memorial bench request or we can blast through it real quick. And then we have the installation of a chess picnic table, which I've assigned to Colin. Okay, so you want to go through the memorial bench real quick, you guys, or do you want to table it for the next meeting?
I'm okay to go through it, Danu.
Okay.
Blast through it, like you say.
Okay. All right, Jillian, I'm going to need your help here. So we had a memorial bench request. Since I've been on PARAB and since we've implemented this policy, we've only done one other memorial bench request, and that memorial bench now sits down in Soda Springs Park on the west end, right by the creek. The applicant lives in Australia, so I've been communicating with her via email. She would like to have a memorial bench placed in memory of her sister at 7 Minute Springs. And she included a photo where she was thinking of a location, the location of it would be good. Which is there. However, she also specified that she would like the bench to be in the shade, and that area gets no shade because that park is a south-facing park. And so there's very, very little shade in that area. So I don't think that would be an appropriate space for that particular bench. Plus there's already, it looks like 5 benches there already that are existing. So what I suggested to her was to replace the bench that is like at the, on the left-hand side that faces the front. Can you put your pointer on that, Jillian? It's the first bench. Yeah, that, no, come, yeah, yep, that one. Yeah, that one, yeah. Okay. I suggested that we replace that bench with her memorial bench. And she said that she didn't want to replace any benches. And she really wanted to be in the shade, looking at the mountains. So if we go to the next slide, I took a picture of this bench to ask her if she wanted to perhaps replace that bench in that photograph with the new bench, which looks at the mountains, but it's not in the shade. And for some reason, she wasn't open to that. So when I was there looking, if you look where those two people are walking down there by the sidewalk, there's already a art pedestal right where your little marker is, Jillian. And I thought, well, you know, we could add a bench there. It would be in the shade. In our policy, we say that we want to match the same existing bench, that's the memorial bench, to the same existing benches that are currently there. So it would be that style of bench down there where Jillian's marker is. So it'd be in the shade. You could still kind of look at the mountains. The only drawback is that either we could like take out a little bit of the sod and make the sidewalk a little bit larger so it could sit on a pad, or if there's a possibility, we could do another round caisson to match the art pedestal and mount the bench on that, and that would minimize the turf removement. Now, my question is would the park staff be able to get their weed whacker underneath the bench if we did the option to add just another round art pedestal to match the one that's there, and then we could affix the bench to that? So that's what I wanted to ask PARAB, their thoughts, your thoughts.
Sorry, Danu, just a quick question regarding these in general. So what is the incentive for us to add memorial benches other than being nice?
It's a way for people to memorialize their loved ones who have lived in Manitou. I'm sorry, I should have included the policy. I know I sent it to Jillian, but I meant to include it in the packet. So there are certain guidelines that go along with having the memorial bench. So whoever's requesting a memorial bench, they have to pay for the cost of the memorial bench. They have to pay for the plaque. City staff will provide the concrete to mount the bench. City staff will mount the bench and mount the plaque. And it can't have certain like birth dates, like a cemetery, no birth dates, no, we're not having a memorial bench to mimic a cemetery, but rather a remembrance of the person, nothing political, nothing religious messaging, but it has to pertain directly to the person. So that's
from a very practical standpoint for us, it's a way to get new benches for free.
Correct.
Okay.
And it allows people who want to have their beloved remembered to give them a little space in our park.
And there's no guidelines on how long the person must have lived in Manitou or anything of that sort, that they're not vetted in that way.
Correct.
Okay.
Just that the person lived in Manitou.
And it engenders goodwill too.
Oh, of course. No, I understand the altruistic aspects of it. I was just wondering from a kind of more practical standpoint. There's no danger of being overrun with memorial benches, I take it.
So far, no, because like I say, you know, on my time of being on PARAB, and there's been some other random memorial benches that have popped up, some in Shriver, before we had a policy. But it was because somebody came to us who wanted to do a memorial bench, and we were encouraged to develop a memorial and memorial tree policy for our parks. And so I think it was in maybe I want to say 2016 maybe, or 20...
That sounds right. And I think OSAC has adopted it as well for their areas.
Yeah, just so that the city has some kind of a policy guideline in which to follow when people want to put a memorial tree or a memorial bench for those that they have lost.
Great, thanks.
So maybe if you guys have time, if you want to go by and look at that area, and so Jillian, I was thinking to match that art installation pedestal because it would be less money for the city. less concrete, and it would still maintain as much of our green turf as possible without taking it out for a slab of concrete.
I think it's a good idea. I need to put eyes on that specific location also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think they could get a weed whacker underneath the bench.
Yeah, as long as it's high enough.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I have that catalog that shows that same type of design. So should I send out the memorial policy for everybody to review before we make a decision on this? And do you guys want to go visit the site and look at it to see what it looks like? And I guess the one positive thing is that there are no park benches in that park that are in the shade. So that would be the only one.
So are you looking at that? You're looking at that little blue rectangle?
Yeah.
Okay, and so it would be like sort of by the sidewalk? It would be facing the sidewalk? Or like
Yeah.
kind of at an angle?
Well, that's why, I can't exactly remember where that pedestal is. So it'd be better if it was closer to the sidewalk, but I can't remember where that art pedestal is in relationship to that sidewalk. But she does want the bench so that you can look at the mountains, but the type of bench that it is, you can face either way.
Yeah, I think it looks great. I don't know. I'm fine with it.
What? I'm fine with it too, Danu. I would like to see the policy just for interest. Okay. Future, thanks.
Julie, I think it's a good location and a good compromise for what she's asking.
Okay. So how about we take a vote on that then?
Really quick, was there supposed to be something that went in there? How come there's just a slab of concrete?
Well, it was it's a round art pedestal for an art installation, but currently there's no art installation on that pedestal.
Are we going to get into trouble with the Arts in the Streets group for using it?
That's a good point. Art on the Avenue, we'd probably need to ask them about that. Because I know that they are planning some more installations later this summer.
Right. Well, you know, Julian, I'm kind of mad at them because they put that big, ugly sculpture chair right in that park too, and they didn't ask us if it was okay. So, I mean, I think that was supposed to be an agreement that the Arts Council has to come to PARAB for if they're going to add a new art installation in the park.
Well, let's go on the side of trying to make nice and say, sure. Take the vote and say that this is what we would like to do and check with them.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So I move that we locate it in the place that you named, and maybe you could give that the specificity for it. And as after we have checked with Arts on the Streets folks.
Yeah, that sounds good. And Jillian, I'm happy to go out there with you and check it out, check the site out and see what we can do.
Okay.
And I'm also happy to contact Arts Council. And I guess another side note is Becca Sickbert. It has left as our creative art director. So I'll have to see it. Either I could talk to Natalie or Audrey Gray. I think Audrey might be. I'll find out who the proper channels are to talk to about that. So. So did you make a motion, Jen?
I did.
Did you catch the motion, everybody?
I wanted Danu to clean it up as far as the location. It's by the blue pedestal rectangle on 7 Minute Springs, close to Lovers Lane, El Paso intersection. Let's, you know.
All right. Well, I'll work with Chris and clean it up. Once I, go out there and look at it with Julian but that's the general location though that I'm proposing. is right there off of El Paso Boulevard. So, okay, does anybody want to second that?
Well,
can we just get verification though that nothing's going in there first before I agree? We're gonna, because otherwise then it'll be, yeah, we'll have to revisit anyways.
All right, well, then maybe what I should do is I'll go ahead and contact the Arts Council before we pass the motion, okay? So we can revisit it at our next meeting, okay? And meanwhile, that'll give you guys time to look at that area and that location and get a better idea. All right, so I'll just put this on the next agenda. How's that?
Thanks, Danu.
Okay, thanks, Rebecca. Okay, Colin, installation of a chess table.
Woohoo! It's been over 3 years, as many of you know, since I attempted to defend the town's honor by playing in the Manitou Winter Open Invitational, where I was soundly defeated by youth and adults alike. But it did make me realize that we do need a chess table. I think it's something that's nice to have. And of course, it can also be used for checkers as well. I remember that Skylar, before he left, had actually found a few models of these things that he thought were appropriate to put in. And Jillian, I would defer to you as to where we think it should go. But I think that spot, I actually went and took here, let me see, I can, I took a picture today. So here's the work that's going on right now. I've always thought that this part of Shriver is kind of, you know, a little rough and tumble over here. They're fixing this path here. Eventually something's going to happen here, but I don't know if this little spot here by the creek, it's flat and it's very pleasant. It's in the shade. It might be a nice place for someone who wants to play a game of chess. So I think somewhere in that vicinity could be a good spot, but I, of course, would defer to, you know, whatever you think should happen with the parks. But yes, I would love to have a permanent table that is ready for chess or checkers at any time.
Mm-hmm. My only thing with that is I like that location, except for there's turf there, greenery. And in order to install one of those picnic tables, we need to pour a concrete pad. Yeah, so
well, I don't know if there's, I mean, there's some parts in Shriver that are almost like dirt. The turf is badly worn away. So I don't know if that could be a spot. The other thing I think that Skylar was thinking was somewhere over in Memorial Park, close to the playground, that is in an area that already has maybe wood chips on it. So yeah, I don't know, Danu. I don't know, or if
I like that
has an idea of where they think it should go.
Well,
even better, can we, I'll say it again, can we get rid of the cannon and put chess there? Something that's, you know, maybe more consistent with what we believe in.
Right.
Don't touch the cannon.
Lose the cannon. It got dumped here by the Army. We don't need it.
Well, and it's called Memorial Park, and I don't know, Eber Duclos, I think, is going to be with us forever.
Yeah,
we could melt down the cannon.
Love the statue, hate the weapon.
Yeah, we could melt it down and make a table.
Oh my God, we can melt it down and make a proper memorial to people that have given their lives in service.
You know, I'm not opposed to that idea, Colin, except for Memorial Park is one of our largest used parks for events, large events. And whenever we've tried to do tree planting or anything that's not already existing, we have to run it by Commonweal. We have to run it by the chamber. We have to, go ahead, Jen. Mute.
You're on mute, Jan.
Mute, Jen. You're on mute, Jen.
Okay. The other option is over by the kiddie pool, where they have, you know, where Shelley had the idea of putting in those blocks, those cinder blocks. Maybe we could take one of those tables out and put the chess table there.
Yep. I thought about that as well.
I do like the idea somewhere in Shriver Park. I think would be a great place since since the pool is there and the pond is there, and I think somewhere in there would be a good place. And if you want me to go back and look again, or if you have some ideas, I think further down, if from that photo where I was, if you kind of are across and you turn right and go towards the pool, there's some other areas right along the creek that are pretty flat too, that are not, the turf isn't particularly beautiful, Danu. Maybe we could put something there.
What about Wheeler? Could this be part of the Wheeler redo?
That could be too.
Or what about Soda Springs? Because we're already going to be putting new stuff there. Like maybe on the east end or something.
To replace one of those existing picnic tables, maybe with the chess table. Take one of the existing picnic tables out and replace it with or on the east end. Yeah, totally on the east end, where they were trying to revitalize it down there. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if there was any tables.
Well, and that area that you mentioned too, Danu, that weird kind of cinder block area where there's these 3 tables in Shriver Park there, right?
Yeah.
And kind of, to my eye, sort of weirdly spaced, and I don't see them used very often. Maybe this would be a chance to reconfigure that space somehow.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jen.
Maybe do a chess table in both Soda Springs and Shriver.
You can do that too.
Love that.
Sides of town.
Yeah. Well, tell you what, Jillian, why don't you do some research and see if you can turn up some chess picnic tables, and then you guys, why don't you just sort of kind of look around with that thought in mind, and Colin, since this is your baby, why don't you kind of look around some more too, and come up with a few more locations.
I'll give you a list of places next time.
Okay. All right.
Do you have any of the chess table materials or information that Skylar had looked up previously?
No, I remember he showed, no, sorry, I don't. He had showed me some pictures of things, but I don't think he ever actually sent me anything.
You know, back in the day, all those picnic tables at Soda Springs Park were chess tables. And with over time, the chessboard faded and they got all kind of funky. And so they got tossed and replaced with regular picnic tables. But we used to have chess picnic tables at Soda Springs Park.
I think the quality they weren't as sturdy as the tables we have now, and they kind of got bent.
Yeah.
And, they were, they just, they didn't hold up to abuse very well.
Right.
Jillian, I just did a quick search online. There's a whole bunch. If you just do like outdoor chess tables for parks and recreation, you'll find some pretty cool stuff.
Get some sturdy ones.
Yeah, these look like they're sturdy. They're made of stone.
Yeah, we'd want something sturdy that we can pressure wash. We'll find something sturdy.
Great.
And it doesn't require a lot of cement.
No, you'll love these, Danu.
Oh, I'm sure I will. I'll play chess with you, Colin. It's been a while.
Yeah, me too. I need to get back.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, great. All right, do we have any other business?
What's happening with the slide, or is in Soda Springs, or is it not getting replaced until the new playground equipment is put in?
Correct. So we do have a panel ordered to fill that hole that we cannot keep caution tape or any sort of barrier up there currently. It just keeps getting ripped down every night. But we have a panel ordered. A slide would have cost about 10 grand and it would have been here in 12 weeks. So we are going to replace the slide with a panel for now. It's called a fun panel. And then we are gonna, when the playground gets redone, there'll be another slide. So kind of in a holding pattern for now.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
Well, I'm glad that slide got replaced because I went down once and oh, that was a mistake. It hurt.
You went down the slide?
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah. And oh, it was brutal.
The bottom started getting tears in it.
It did. It had a hole in it, and I meant to do quick fix, but yeah, I had some little kid with me, and I was being cautious, so I went down the slide with her, and oh my God, I thought I was going to die.
We tried to repair it also with plastic weld, but it was not holding up to the traffic that park gets. So. Yeah,
I know. It gets really, so I'm really excited. I hope we can get that new playground in faster than what it takes. So, okay, great. Is there anything else? All right. With that, thank you, everybody. I will adjourn this meeting. Thanks. You guys are great.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jillian.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.